Okay, let's talk about rests. Now, rests are these little symbols that have been popping up and I've been kind of ignoring for the last couple of lessons because I didn't quite want to add them to the pile of things right just yet. But I think now is the good time. So this little squiggle here is called a rest. This little goofy shape is called a rest. These blocks here are called rests. These blocks are called rests. There's a lot of different kinds of rests. Now what a rest does is it's a rhythmic amount that has no pitch. There is a symbol for every rhythm that we've talked about so far. So whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, 32nd notes. They all have a correlating symbol that means do nothing for that amount of time. Rest. Just be quiet for that amount of time. So this squiggle here, let's start with that one. That is a quarter note rest. And we know it's a quarter note rest because, check this out. Remember, it has to equal 4 beats. So this note is how many beats? It's 3, remember, because it's a half note, which gets 2 beats, plus a dot, which gets an additional beat. So this is 3 beats. So in order for this measure to be complete, we need a quarter rest in there, right? Because not only can we put a maximum of 4 beats in a measure, but we actually have to have 4 beats of stuff in a measure. We can't leave any beats off. Every measure, as long as we're in 4/4 time, this symbol over here, which is coming up in the next video, we're going to talk about those. As long as that says 4, then there has to be 4 beats in that measure. There cannot be empty space. So here we have 4 beats. Let me just do really quick here. What if I did that? Okay, what we're saying here is we have a quarter note that we're going to play, and then we're going to rest for a quarter note, and then we have a quarter note we're going to play, and then we're going to rest for a quarter note. So if I wanted to count that along with the pulse, here's how I do it. Here's my pulse. So this is basically the quarter note, remember? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go 1, 3, that's it, right? Because 2, this is beat 2, and it's a rest. So I'm not going to say anything. This is beat 4. So I'll do that a couple times. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, right? Let's get a little more complicated with an eighth rest. So this right here is an eighth rest. And this block is a half rest. So let's look at this measure right here, okay? Because somehow this has to equal 4 whole beats, right? 4 beats. So this note is how many beats? It's a quarter note with a dot. So that means it is a beat and a half, right? So a beat plus 1/8 note. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another eighth note to make that a total of 2 beats, right? Because this is a beat and a half, and this is a half a beat. So that's 2 beats. And then we're going to put a half rest in there to show another 2 beats of rest. That gives us a total of 4 beats, right? A whole rest is these things that are just filling up these empty measures because a measure just can't be empty. So these programs all fill them with whole rests. Whole rests and half rests look really similar. It's just kind of where they're perched, right? So a half rest perches right on the middle line, the line that would be a B, the pitch B. It perches right there. The whole rest perches above the line, right? It sits on top of it, and this one sits below. Think of this one as sitting and this one as hanging. So the whole rest hangs, as they say. The whole rest is hanging from the line. The half rest is sitting on the line. A 16th note rest and the faster rhythms are all variations of the 8th note rest. So if I look at a 16th note rest, oh, there we go. So here is a 16th note rest. It's just like an 8th note rest with an extra little comma thing coming off of it, right? This has 2, shows me it's a 16th note rest. A 32nd note rest is going to have 3 of those, right? So this measure is kind of goofy now because I have all these rests bunched up together, right? What I could do is I could consolidate these two into 1/8 note. And then, so I'd have an 1/8 note here. And then I could consolidate these, all three of these now, into 1/4 note, right? Because this is an 1/8 note together, and then this is an 1/8 note. So that all equals 1/4 note. And then I could take, so then I'd have a 1/4 note rest. And then I could take that 1/4 note and that 1/4 note, consolidate them into a 1/2 note rest. And we get right back to where we are. Let's do one more rhythm. Let's do kind of a weird one with a bunch of 1/8 rests. Let's go like this. So here's how I'm going to count this one bar here. So I have 1, and that's going to be the and. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, and this is beat 4. So I don't have a beat 4, but I have an and of 4. So I'm going to count starting right here. This would be 3 and, right? Because there's no beat 4. So with tempo, 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3 and. One thing that's tricky about these kind of rhythms is that you don't easily see that this note is right up against this note, right? If you're going to repeat this bar over and over, which let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to duplicate that bar. Okay, so here's the same bar twice. So these notes are right next to each other because that's 3 and then beat 4 and then 1, right? So these are right close to each other. We don't beam them together, even though it's 2 1/8 notes side by side. We don't actually beam them together because, in this case, because there's a bar line in between. Bar line separates all. So we leave those as having flags. So that's how rests work. Remember that there is a symbol for every rhythmic value that is a rest version of it. And also remember that there has to be, the whole measure has to be full for the rhythm to make sense. We can't just have numbers that, or rhythms that don't add up to 4 in our case. Now, I've been talking about this. Everything has to be in groups of 4, and that's not always true. That's true for us because of this symbol right here. So let's move on to talking about time signatures, which is what we have right here, and look at a case where maybe things don't add up to 4. They add up to a different number.